everybody. Welcome back to the conversation series. I'm so thrilled to have Labar with us today. And I'm going to let her introduce herself because I'm a huge fan of her and the world she lives in. So I'm going to let her introduce herself.
The world I live in. Oh my gosh, it's not that exciting, I promise. But yeah, I am Abby. I'm a sports reporter. I went to NC State, go Pack.
Yes.
I graduated in 2017, and I actually tried to leave Raleigh. I tell people this all the time. I tried to get out of Raleigh and go pursue sports reporting elsewhere because there's so many awesome sports markets, all around with tons of professional and college sports. And little did I know how much I should have been appreciating the town that I live in, Raleigh, North Carolina, and all that it has to offer. I got to cover NC State, UNC, and Duke all through college, which was super exciting, but I, felt like I had kind of exhausted my options there as far as I couldn't find any jobs when I graduated with any of the schools. And, even having ACC network coming in, it's just things, it wasn't the right time to really be covering them. And the local station I worked for didn't have any job openings. And, I had covered the Hurricanes a little bit my senior year of college, just through a local news station that I worked for, Spectrum News at the time. And so I was familiar with the team, but you know how it was for a little bit there. They weren't that good.
Yeah.
And so we didn't, I didn't have really any friends that went to games, and the hockey wasn't anything that I grew up with in my blood being from Charlotte. We were Panthers and Hornets. And so when I saw the job opening after I graduated and I was kind of trying to figure out, okay, what's my next move? Where should I go? I immediately jumped on it, one, because it was an in-game hosting job, which I loved my time in-game hosting for NC State baseball and some other minor league ball teams throughout college. It's such a great job, and it's so underrated when it comes to the skill set that it provides for the job that I want to do. And so I looked at a lot of in-game hosting jobs, and when I saw the Canes, I was like, well, that's already a draw. I'm still in Raleigh right now. I haven't really done much with hockey, but I would love to learn the sport. This could be a great experience for me. So I applied, I auditioned, and I told them that in my audition. I said, hey, guys, look, like I am familiar with the team and the brand, just from what I covered, my senior year of college. But I never grew up following hockey. So this is new territory for me, but like I want to learn. And I think me showing that passion, that eagerness and willingness to learn, they hired me, and I'm so thankful for that opportunity and all that it has brought me, because just from, starting with the Canes, it has kind of snowballed into, I guess a lot of people say snowballed in a bad way, but snowballed into a lot of great opportunities for me as far as, staying in Raleigh, covering more for NC State, getting to do ACC football. And, now with COVID and travel restrictions, I'm lucky that I have 3 schools in my backyard, NC State, UNC, and Duke, for football season. So hopefully I can get put on some of those games. So it's been a crazy past few years, and I expected it, but it's truly a rewarding job being the in-game host for the Hurricanes. And I guess I don't really, I'm still considered the in-game host for the Hurricanes, even though I got to cover the playoffs on Fox Sports Carolinas, which is so exciting. So not sure what the future holds as far as, that goes, but the organization is near and dear to my heart. I've expressed to them how much, I want to stick with them, whether that's as the in-game host or if I do continue to do more for Fox Sports Carolinas. But regardless, I am living the dream, I guess you would say. I'm getting to do football and hockey and, staying somewhere, in Raleigh with having friends that went to NC State. They're all kind of, some of them are still around, and Raleigh I totally take it for granted. It's such a great city. I mean, people there's so much to love about this place. And it's when you go to NC State, you kind of are just like locked into like NC State Raleigh. You don't really get to explore like Raleigh. And so I've gotten to explore like Raleigh. I'm like, oh, there's more to this world than like the Wolfpack and just the Brickyard, right? So it's been great, but I'm excited to be doing what I'm doing.
And a huge congratulations on getting to do stuff with Fox Sports Carolina during
Thank you.
Like I was so thrilled. I've watched Hurricanes like since I can remember. I mean, my youngest was growing up at the Carolina Hurricanes and watching hockey. So it's been, like you said, we've had some rough years. So getting back into this, it's so cool.
More power to you guys, like sticking with it.
I was at the 0506 game, like that whole
Oh my gosh.
I got to see it. But it's like, you have all the fans who like come in and are like, "Oh, we're fans now that we're winning." I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, you were not
Nope, get
here.
out of here.
You
Yeah,
were
I'm
not
one of those
here."
fans. I'm the one that came in and jumped on the bandwagon when we started.
But it
No, I'm kidding. But I envy those people that got to be at that game and witness the playoff run. And for me, it's tough because, like, working with Tripp and Mike, they're able to pull stories from that experience. And I'm like, like I lack that. I wish I would have, been engulfed in this organization. But I've experienced some really cool stuff the last couple of years.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And the I can't say enough about the team that we do have and the team that continues to progress. I mean, Rod Brind'Amour, can't say enough
Oh
about,
my gosh.
like, when he was brought in as head coach, it was so cool to be able to be like,
Yeah.
that is fantastic. And I know that everybody in Raleigh was so thrilled to have him as part of this organization.
And he's totally not disappointed either. And it's
No.
really cool. Like, I think that's my favorite part about him. And that's why I have no doubt, like, we're going to win a Stanley Cup while he's head coach, because he's doing it for all the right reasons. He's not doing it he loves the game of hockey. He loves the game of hockey. And he's such an ambassador for the game
Absolutely.
itself, but he loves the Canes too and the organization. And it's so cool to watch. Like, there was, one of the videos we used in one of the broadcasts for the playoffs was his birthday, like his birthday video. And if you watch that so if you watch the full thing on Twitter, I wish we would have gotten to run the whole thing on the broadcast, but on Twitter, he like gets the cake and then he stands up and he starts doing a speech about like how much it means to be a Carolina Hurricane. And it's like, where is this coming from? It's little things like that he does and tries to remind the guys in the community how much he cares about the Carolina Hurricanes. Like, you don't find that with a lot of coaches. No. And some guy tweeted, I can't remember specifically who it was. I want to say maybe it was like Pierre, one of the big hockey gurus on Twitter, tweeted something about like Rod and his contract, or where would Rod go? Rod will not coach anywhere else in this league besides for the Hurricanes. And that makes it so special too, because it's not about money or politics for him. It's about like what he cares about, and it's the team and the community. And that's just like the best person you can have as a leader.
He loves the city. And I saw that video and it warmed my heart, because he completely turned it around from, it wasn't about his birthday. It was about the people in Raleigh and how much they cared and everything. And I was like, you can't even put into words what this city probably means to him.
I know. And it's so great to hear from, people like you who've grown up with the game. And even with this kid, there's so many people that I'm sure have grown up with his kids, which just makes it even more special. Like they're just a part of the community. And so I love hearing those stories about Max, my co-host. He actually, so it's funny, he got the job for the in-game co-host job or whatever. And I, one of the first couple of games we were working, I'm like, so tell me your background. Like, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, I'm in radio, but honestly, like this gig, like I've always been a diehard Carolina Hurricanes fan. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this, like why, how great would it be to get paid to watch my favorite team, up close and personal. And so he always had some really awesome stories about him going to the Stanley Cup final games and, him watching the games as a kid, and to see the perspective and hear the perspective of the fans that truly have been so engulfed with this team for as long as they've been here through the ups and downs. It's just a great reminder of how special, the community and the organization here is. And I'm like, I've only been covering the team, I guess, for 3 seasons. And really, like last season, I'll never forget this. It was when we swept the Islanders, like game 4 at PNC. I had actual tears coming out of my eyes. And I was like, what am I like, what's happening to me? Like, I'm this, like, like emotionally invested in this team. Like, I've never been that way with a team, especially as a reporter, because like you know, you can't, there's all the bias, and, you know,
Yeah.
you be careful about, you know, how much you get stuck on one team, and you jump
Right.
around a lot. And, you know, the Carolina Panthers were never, you know, that great. And the
Right.
Hornets were the Bobcats and then the Hornets. And so, like, I never really had a team until I got to NC State, and it was like all NC State basketball, football. And so the Hurricanes, like, I just like start crying, like, after we swept the Islanders. I was like, what is happening? I can't imagine these people that have been waiting 10 years for this.
I
Like, I've
was,
only been
yes.
here a year.
Yeah, it's crazy. We were at the game 6 of the Washington Hurricanes game.
Oh
And
my God.
and then when we were in game 7, I literally, my neighbors down below me in my apartment, I made angry because I kept like jumping up and down. And I just remember getting on the phone afterwards with my sister, because her and I grew up in this crazy
Yeah.
hockey world. And I was like, her and I were like crying. We're like, we just beat the Capitals in game 7. And it was like insanity. And then we got on the
So
phone
awesome.
with Dad, and he's like, we're going to game 3 of the Islanders. And I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, yes. So I have the same emotions. Like, I've been watching for so many, like, I'll burst out into tears just so
Yeah.
just when those
Yeah, but like, you deserve to. I'm like, oh my God, I can't, like, what if I'm only like in season 2 and I'm crying tears of joy? But
it's
anyways,
this team. It's this
it's
team.
so
I have
great.
to tell you, I don't know
It
what it is
is.
about them, but they just care so much. So I think that
Yeah,
makes it better. I think it really does.
for sure. It's awesome.
How did you fall in love with the world of sports?
You know, a lot of people always ask me that. So growing up, I was very active. It was like, you know, what could I do every single season, and what could I try new? So, you know, I did everything from, I did softball, actually volleyball. I only did for, like, my sister was like the big volleyball player. But I tried it. You know, if there was a ball, or, you know, some sort of, you know, running active part, like, I was going to try it. And if I was bad at it or I hated it, I wouldn't do it after another season. And so, when I got to high school, soccer was my main sport. I loved soccer. I played it. I guess I was okay at it. Tell people I was good at it. So in high school, I did cross country in the fall, basketball in the winter, and then soccer was in the spring. And then during the summer, I was a swimmer for a summer team. And then I also rode horses year round in between all of that. So I did like a little bit of everything. I was always like the antsy person that needed to get out. And so I lived and breathed like just being active and always having something to do. And so, you know, as I started to explore, like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life, I started to come to the reality of, like, okay, well, I'm not going to be busy with sports. It's going to be like real world stuff. Like, I don't, you know if sitting at a desk all day is for me, because I'm the type of person that has to be out and about. And I think I took it was a class, I think like my freshman or sophomore year of high school, and it was like a career class. And basically our teacher said, decide what you want to, or look up a career and then make a brochure on it, or something. And I like stumbled upon broadcasting.
Okay.
And I thought, you know, this is cool. Like, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at science. I'm not really even that good of a writer, which I'm sure I'll have to take, you know, I took writing classes and journalism classes, but I'm like, I'm not good at anything that's like school, like book wise.
Yeah.
And so I looked into broadcasting, and, you know, I thought it would be cool. I went to a homecoming game with my papa, who was he's a huge Tennessee Volunteer fan. He went to the school. His dad was a dean there. So we went to all of the Tennessee homecoming games, and I loved that atmosphere and that college football atmosphere. And, you know, around the time where I was taking this class and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I told him about broadcasting. And so he was like, let me walk you into because it was homecoming, a lot of the buildings were open. He's like, let's walk into the broadcasting building. Right. So he took me in there. I was looking around. They had studios, and I just fell in love with it. I was like, this is awesome. And like, why not sports broadcasting? Like, I want to do that. Like, if I can do this for my life, why would I not? Like, what a cool opportunity. And so I knew I wanted to do that going into college. And NC State obviously did not have a journalism school. It's communication and then media, and then you can minor in journalism, which is weird, but you can't major in journalism, which I'm still not confused about, but that's another story. And so as soon as I started at NC State, I was like, okay, how can I get that hands-on experience? Because as I was doing my research about the, broadcasting and other women that are in the industry, it was a lot of like they were doing stuff. They were part of school stations, and it wasn't so much the courses and the classes. And so I emailed the athletics department like as soon as I stepped out on foot at campus, and I was like, hey, I want to get involved. And thankfully they allowed me to get involved with the basketball team, which then led into working with the baseball team. And so I knew before I even went to school that that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
And it obviously, having the internships and the opportunities was a great reminder
Right.
Throughout my time that this is okay. I can be good at this. I like this even more, because you get to college and a lot of times you have an idea of what you want to do with your life, but you always change you change your mind a million times. And I have friends that still are trying to figure out what they want to do, which is fine. But it's just, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I realized quickly that through those hands-on experience that I wanted to keep doing it. And then I started getting into the storytelling aspect of it, and humanizing athletes and players and coaches. And there's so much more to it than just the active part in playing the sports and the entertainment. And so all of that I just continued to learn throughout my time at NC State, and then just I just continued to fall in love with it every day. And then hockey was just a whole new world. I had done football and basketball and baseball, but I hadn't done hockey. And then the last 3 years I've done hockey, and it's a beautiful sport. And so there's just so much to love about it. And especially during a time like now where we lost sports for a little bit, and then now we're getting it back, and people need things to think about, and things to make them happy and bring them joy, with everything happening in the world. And so to be a part of that and be like a voice for these teams and these, players and coaches, and bring people that joy is just, it makes me value this industry and this job so much more than I did, a year ago. And I learned something new every single week, every single day. And it's so exciting.
Absolutely. I love how ever changing those sports
I
world
know.
is. I mean, you learn something new every day. You brought up the craziness of your schedule and your time. Can you walk me through like what a day is like for Abby Labar when you are for Carolina Hurricanes, or when you're reporting just in general for a game?
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know I actually have a full-time job on top of all the sports stuff. And so I work for a technology company, OpEx Technologies, that I call my day job. So normally during I'll give you like the normalcy of like what's in-game hosting, football season, and juggling. The technology job is kind of like during a week, because that's usually when my schedule is the craziest. This whole time has been a little different and weird, but so last fall, I'm working for my company. I'm going into the office 9 to 5. So let's say we have a Tuesday night Canes game,
Okay.
and a Saturday football game.
Okay.
So go into the office Monday for my technology job. They give me full free flexibility on Canes game days, which is really nice. So Tuesday Canes game is a long day. I am in there before morning skates. So morning skates usually around 10:30. I get in there around probably 10ish, like right before, just to kind of pop in, check with my producers and editors. Hey, anything you guys heard of over the last 24 hours? Because a lot of times the day before, I'm kind of trying to get what I need to done for my technology company, so I can put that aside and not have to focus on it during game day. So sometimes I'm off social media during the day, whereas a lot of other reporters, their full-time job is also being on social media. So sometimes I'm playing catch up in the mornings. So, make sure there's nothing going on, go to morning skate 10:30 to like 11:30ish, and then we have the locker room access where we can go in, talk to the guys. This is in non-COVID world, where we would go in, talk to the guys. If I had any stories in mind or anybody specific, I would go, get that video and that sound and those interviews with those guys. If not, I'm just kind of listening to what they're saying. The best stuff that I use to support, and especially as a host, to support my role is quotes from the guys, and quotes from Rod, because that's like factual stuff that's being said. It's not me having an opinion or making a hot take. hey, I heard this is what they said. And it's always great stuff. And people love to hear that. So, talking to the guys, then we have Rod does his press conference, and I'm usually wrapped up with players, coach, and skate around noonish.
Okay.
And then I sit down in front of a computer and I put together my whole script. So from like noon to like 3-ish, I'm, typing out my script. I'm working with my producers, my editors. This is all at the arena, up in the control room. I'm giving them what video they need. They're giving me, anything, whatever. And it's just kind of a really, it goes by so fast. Like the crunch time of putting together a script is so, it's a 3-4 hour ordeal, but it literally feels like, 30 minutes sometimes. And so I do that. And then my script, I usually like to have done by 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock is like, okay, cause I have to go home and, I usually, get ready for the game. I eat. That's when I eat like a big meal because I'm not usually eating a ton before then, and I'm not usually eating a lot when I get home. So like I eat like a giant meal at like 3:30, like 4 o'clock. And then we have to be back at the arena. Our call time is always 2 hours before puck drop. So 7 p.m. puck drop, we're back at 5. Okay. So I have between like usually 3 and like 4:30 to kind of get completely ready for the game. I'm, doing my makeup and I'm running through my script in my head. I'm like talking to myself in the mirror. And then I get back to the arena at 5. We do our production meeting where, we do like the whole in-game production meeting. So like everything from like, the videos we play during timeout to like my show. It's like from, the before puck drop to the very end, what's happening on the Jumbotron, what's happening on the ice as far as like the games go. So that's always really cool. So that probably gets done, let's see, 5, 6-ish. And then it doesn't really go all the way till 6. I would say 5, 5:45-ish. And then the rest of the time, like 5:45 to 6:30-ish, 6:45, I guess another hour or so is when I'm just, taking my stuff down to section 130, getting ready for the game, practicing my pregame script again. And then, show starts and we go all the way till the end. And, I don't do anything post game unless we have a back-to-back. I usually try to get ahead for the next day. But yeah, so I'm in the arena for the most part, like 12 hours. If you think about like a 7 o'clock game, ends around like 9-ish, 10 o'clock. Maybe like 10 if you take out like the whole lunch break thing. So that's that. And then the next day I am back in the office. If that's a Tuesday night game, I'm back in the office Wednesday and Thursday, and I'm juggling like working for OPEX and football prep if I have a football game on that Saturday, because Fridays are travel days for football. So I'm only in the office, the Wednesday, Thursday, I'm doing throughout the game week of football. It's really cool. We just get to do all sorts of phone interviews with players and coaches, and that's really where we get the bulk of our prep for our stories and our stuff. So it's a lot of, office work and then hopping on the phone with these guys and, reading my notes and prepping for the football game. And then, Fridays we travel and, have the meeting. We have, for Saturday football games, you always have Friday meetings with the coaches, especially for the home team. So we do those meetings on Friday, and then Saturday's a football game. And honestly, football games are pretty easy as far as like day of. My game teams are so long for the game days because I do my scripts the day of the game versus like football. I'm usually prepped before I go in there. And so like that's like wake up and then I just have to get there 2 hours before the game.
Right.
For the most part. Sometimes I'm printing extra notes and whatever. So and then football is, pretty much very similar where we do the production meetings and all that, and then you're there for the game. So it's crazy. Like that was probably the craziest time of my life where I had, all 3 of those going on. Obviously this year has been a little different with,
right.
COVID and everything, but being on the show, on the Fox show for hockey is pretty similar from a preparation standpoint as far as I do write my own script. Okay. They will send out like, hey, here's the order and here are the topics we're going to be discussing. But I put together the questions. I do research on Twitter and, I'm like, oh, hey, Rod's 50th birthday was the other day. Let's use this. And so I do a lot of preparation for the games, which is great because you want to know what you're talking about too. Like, I don't know how people just like take information and just recite it. Like I am very happy writing my own scripts, and I
Yeah.
always will be, because I want to know what I'm talking about.
I've got notes on things everywhere. Anytime I
Yeah,
do something, I have like notes and questions written down and things
yeah,
ready to go. I'm the same exact way. I cannot just like pull something straight from my head
I know.
and
Yeah,
make it sound like I know what I'm saying, if that makes any
yeah,
sense. Like it's
for
just
sure. No, you have to, and a lot of times too, in my role as a host, like it's a lot of ad libbing and like just going with, you can't really rely on a script. So, I say I write a script, which I do. I really like, I write the way I do it is I say, in a perfect world, this is what I would love to say for every single part of the show. Never comes out that way, but it's a good exercise to kind of get the wheels turning in your brain, like using different words, not sounding redundant. And so I am still at the level in my career where I do write out a full script, but
okay.
Obviously people that are veterans in this industry, they can just bullet point a couple words and do a full show and know what they're talking about. So
Absolutely.
hopefully one day, but that'll come with the
Yeah.
continuous research and script writing, and like
Yeah.
you said, just preparing for your own shows.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. I think my biggest question from you, we've talked about the ever-changing world of sports, and with that, we've seen, you know, women starting having actual voices in the world of sports. What has it been like for you being a reporter in the sports world as a woman?
it's funny because I talked about this recently. And to be completely honest, I've been in this career, I guess if you technically count college, for,
Yeah.
6 or 7 years, but, just in by myself in this, industry
Right.
as a woman for 3 years. And I've been very lucky to be surrounded by men and women in this industry that are very uplifting. And like I said, maybe it's a Raleigh thing because this community is so great.
Yes.
And the people here are just great. And we're in the South, but I have not personally felt like I was discriminated against because
Right.
I am a woman
Right.
in this industry. The biggest challenge that I have is feeling insecure about myself because I am a woman, right? Like,
Right.
I'm working with guys like Shane, Mike, and Tripp who know hockey like the back of their hand.
Yeah.
And I come in and I'm still trying to learn. And so what I've kind of taught myself over the last 2 years is to kind of get over that insecurity. Obviously following other women in this industry and seeing, how much work they put into getting to where they are, and, how valued and respected they are. Telling myself, like, you'll get there, like, and be
Right.
confident, being confident in myself and the stuff that I know, because I know way more than a lot of other people do, even though sometimes I'm going to feel insecure about it. Like, no, like I know just as much as the guy next to me, because I know I'm putting in the work. It's you're surrounded by men who have played the sports before. They've been veterans in it. They've maybe have been in the industry longer. And I think that's the toughest part. It's just, coming in as a young woman and being surrounded by that. It's trying to feel confident in yourself and what you can bring to the table. And especially as like a host, a lot of times our job, you're told, like, your job is to tee up your analyst. Like, let the analyst do the numbers and the talking and the stats. And, that's, I get that. And that's totally, like, I agree with it. But at the same time, what if I want to bring, that value to the table too?
Absolutely.
What if I've been doing my research? Like, I know the numbers just as well as the guy next to me if I've done my research on it, and so there's that balance too of what is our role, right, as women. And there is a little bit of a stereotype of what a woman's role is in this industry, but then we're seeing women like be play-by-play, women and analysts, and that's what's really cool about it. And that's just reminding us that, hey, we have to be confident in ourselves and that we can do that because there are these pioneers that are paving the way for us. And so it's kind of more of an internal battle for me specifically than it is like having to deal with feeling discriminated against.
Right.
But when all these women that I have that are colleagues and mentors have absolutely dealt with those things. And so to hear from them, their stories and, how they kind of deal with it and, seeing women pave the way for us is really refreshing, and it's a good learning experience. And so I'm sure one day it'll be something that I'm going to have to deal with. And so, I can only continue to do my research and my prep and work as hard as I can, to show that I, am intelligent and I am confident and I, am doing my job to the best of my abilities. And that's all that I can do, right? Be myself and do the job to the best of my ability. And if somebody doesn't like that or they're not happy with it, then that's not my problem. I'm working as hard as I can, I'm doing my best here, and I'm going to feel good about that. So it's great to see how many women are just rising to the occasion, especially during COVID, like this time, COVID and everything that's happening in our world with trying to combat racism and Black Lives Matter, like women have a unique voice in all of this, because in the past, our role has always been to be storytellers. And so now so many more women are rising to the occasion, because as women, we have more emotions, I think, than men sometimes. We're a little more emotional, but we can utilize that to our advantage. So as women in this industry, how can we take advantage of our strengths, and not let people bring us down about our weaknesses? And right now, I think more women are rising to the occasion than, we have in the past. So take advantage of those opportunities and those strengths.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's so fantastic to see so many women speaking out, even if it is over social media, on Twitter, just with so much support from other women and women supporting other women in the sports industry. And I think it's such a fantastic thing to see women finally saying, you know what, we can be in sports too, and we can do it just as well as you can. And you having these old time fashioned opinions doesn't bother us anymore, because we are here and we can do it just like you. You brought up the Sidelined podcast. Can you share what it is and who your hosts are?
Yeah, so it's been on pause for a little bit, which is a good thing, just because we've all been, getting some work, which is awesome.
Right.
But Carlin, like I said, has been so great to me. She actually was going to be our first guest on the show, which is funny. So this was John and I, well, more so John's idea. He's the idea guy. We had been John Root. He was the in-arena host for the San Jose Sharks. We have built a really great relationship on the foundation of, we were actually auditioning for the Boston Celtics in-game host job before I worked for the Hurricanes. We auditioned for that together. I didn't know him at the time, but we met at the audition.
Very cool.
We were paired up. And so we were like, oh, this is going to be awesome. We'll be like co-hosts and together in Boston. And then, we're texting each other like every day after the audition. He's like, you hear anything? I'm like, no, you hear anything? And then obviously we didn't get it. But we built this awesome friendship off of that. And we said, let's stay in touch. Let's continue to empower each other. And he's another guy that's just so, like I can pick up the phone and call him at any time. And so we had kind of tossed around the idea of doing a podcast for a little while. He's so good at coming up with ideas and content, and his mind's just always going. And so, we talked a couple times about it, and it was always like, never the right time. It's never the right time. And then, sports went on pause, and we're like, oh, we got all the time in the world. So let's think about starting this podcast again.
Right.
And so we did. And John is the one that actually introduced me to Carlin, because he's out on the West Coast. And we were like, well, let's just start with Carlin as our co-host, or not our co-host, as our first guest.
Right.
And so we texted her about it in like a group message, like, hey, here's what we're thinking of doing. We're going to call it Sidelined. We're going to interview other reporters to kind of help build our own network. Right. And, teach others that were in our position, 2, 3, 5 years ago, wanting to get into the industry, because advice and real world experience is the best thing that you can get from these people, in the industry. And so I don't even know where it took a turn in the group message. I think like we started asking her questions about like, so what do you think? Because she's really good at like the technical side of things as well. And I think we started talking about like microphones or something. And then we were like, John texted me on the side. He's like, hey, like, what if we asked her to host with us? And I was like, I don't think she'd say no. So like we bombarded her in the group message, like, hey, Carlin, you want to be a co-host on this podcast with us? And she was like all about it. So me, John, and Carlin did it starting in April, I guess, March. everything paused in March. We got it off the ground in April.
Okay.
We did 10 episodes. Exactly.
Okay.
We didn't plan for it to like pause on that.
Right.
But we had some awesome guests on there. Actually, one in which I was just Molly McGrath, who was somebody that I idolized. We got her on there, which was an awesome opportunity. And you know, she's a good example of, we wanted to invite people on the podcast that not only our listeners could learn from, but we could learn from as well. And so now I have, you know, built a good relationship with Molly where she can be a mentor for me, where I didn't know her before the podcast. And so we were able to use that as a platform to reach out to, you know, reporters and get them on and learn their stories without, you know, trying to just say, hey, can I get on the phone with you? And so it was fun. It was one of those things where we did it. We didn't expect much out of it, and it got some good traction. And you know, then hockey started and Carlin got some baseball games. And so we did like a episode a couple weeks ago, right before hockey, like, hey guys, like, don't worry, like we're gonna be back in some way, shape, or form. But right now we do have some sports that are happening. So I think once everything kind of calms back down a little bit, we'll start, you know, getting back on there, and we got to get creative with how to utilize it now. But I think we've built a pretty cool platform for others to, you know, come and learn and listen. So
awesome. I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, I love the idea of a podcast. I'm like, and I want to do one so badly. I'm like,
yeah,
I just don't know exactly what I want to do or kind of my outline. So I'm like, I'm like doing all the research. I'm like, okay, someday I'm going to pull the trigger on it and I'm actually going to do it.
Well, and that's the thing, like, and John and I had talked about, and it's so funny because like we had talked about it for so long, and I think we both felt like it was going to be way more of a hassle than it actually was. Like, it was literally just a matter of us just like pulling the trigger on it and just doing it. Like, after we did our first episode, we were like, that was easy. And so it's so much, and no wonder everyone has podcasts these days, because they're really, you know, it's great. And you can really, and that's the beauty of it, you can talk about whatever you want. And and the way you do it is you start it, and this is, like I said, that's why I love, you know, ours. We started it with a purpose of just giving us something to do. You know, we'd all been locked up in our houses for weeks, and so we wanted to communicate with other human beings, and we started with just us three talking and bring on other people. And so it's just something that we did so casually, and we didn't plan it to be something like, oh, we need to get all these views and listen, or we need all these people to listen to, and like whatever, and we need to promote it. Like, no, it's really, once you start it, it's not that tough. So you just have to think of something that like just think of something that you would enjoy, like you're passionate about, or you would enjoy talking about, and that's all you need.
The last question I have for you, what is the biggest piece of advice you would give someone who wants to get into broadcasting or reporting in these days?
I think just be yourself, which is so cliche, but that's, you know, one thing that I've learned, and I've continued to lean on, like I said, as I've kind of dealt with the insecurities of, you know, maybe not knowing a sport or a topic as well as, you know, the person next to me. But I have a lot of strengths that, you know, maybe the person next to me doesn't have. And so leaning on your strengths and not getting down on yourself when your weaknesses are exposed, or, you know, you may not be happy with something. And the strengths are simply just being yourself. Like, they really are. Like, you know, what you naturally have is those are your strengths. And so, you know, personality and attitude, and, you know, the opinions we have, and the way we think about the world, and the perspective we have. I think perspective is huge. I love that word so much. Like, just the perspective that I can bring from, you know, who I am as a person and what I've lived through, and being myself is like the most valuable thing. And people are gonna love it, people are gonna hate it, but you know, you keep going, and you believe in yourself, and you don't lose sight of that, because once you start conforming to, you know, what other people think of you, or what you think who you think you should be, then what's even the point of, you know, doing it? Like, you're not going to be happy either. And so just being yourself. I think somebody said it actually on our Sidelined podcast, and I can't remember who it was, but they said it so perfectly. We were talking about auditions. What, like, the best thing you can do, like, there's no really good way to prepare for an audition besides, you know, doing what you need to from understanding the organization, the team, like you normally would for an interview or an audition. But at a certain point, you have to just trust yourself and be yourself, because if you go into an audition and you try to be somebody that you're not, and they end up hiring you for 2, 3, 4 years,
Yeah.
you're going to have to pretend to be that person or be that person that you're not in that job. So why would you not just be yourself and be the best version of yourself in the when they're first getting a taste of it, you know? And so that's I think one of the best pieces of advice. And I've always said be yourself, but when whoever it was brought that up, like I was like, you're so like you're totally right. Like what,
Absolutely.
you know, like it's a no-brainer. And so that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. And I love that word perspective too, because I love to hear other people's opinions, whether or not I agree with them or not. But I think it's so important to hear other people's thoughts and because it makes you realize, or you may not have thought of it that way or something in that manner.
Yes,
So
exactly.
I absolutely love that word perspective as well. And I think that it's fantastic advice, because who does want to pretend to be something for 2, 3, 4
Oh
years?
my gosh, no, you would be miserable even for just like a week. You know,
I
it's
couldn't
like
even
that's not
imagine.
who you were born to be.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Abby, I appreciate you so much for coming on here, and I absolutely
Oh,
love
yeah, it's
talking to
fine.
you. Everybody, Abby's socials will be linked down below. So will the Sideline podcast. So you guys can go listen. And I can't wait to hear more episodes when you guys record more. I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so much for stopping by and watching and listening, and I will see you guys back here next time. Bye, guys.
Thank you.